I've started recording
Uh,
already. I decided to be more impromptu
oh,
with it this time.
like how you're impromptu with just cutting me off at the end every
No,
time?
that's very intentional.
Okay, cool. Uh, Hi everyone. Just so you know, I totally almost died from COVID this week. It was great. Um,
Well,
uh,
wait, you were more happy to get off work than you were angry that you had COVID.
Well, yes, but here's the thing. I told you what Saturday last week was like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hollis dealt with angry, brain hurty Pike that day, and then afterwards, when I went back to sleep, about every 2 hours, I'd wake up in a cold, delirious sweat, muttering about Paleozoic threats to humanity.
Oh, that's
So.
different from you just thinking about the Roman Empire.
Shut the fuck up. I hate that fucking meme. Like, Jesus
You hate
Christ.
it because it
Like,
applies to you.
I just hate that it's just becoming a fucking thing. I'm like, oh, it's so weird. It's like, no, it's a very, like, normal thing to think about the past. Like, it's not just the Roman Empire for me either. It's like, oh, I like to look at empires in general and see why they fail and such, and how we can try to avoid that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. We should really be looking out for stuff like that. Uh, but the fixation on the moment is just like a. Apparently, it's weird that you think about the Roman Empire. It's like that's so weird. It's like no, it's not. It's really not. Maybe if you applied more than like 5 seconds of hindsight thought, you would also be considering the historical precedents being set by our ancestors and how we should avoid making their mistakes. Jesus Christ.
Well, see, I kind of agree with you to an extent because so when I first saw that meme, it was actually true because I had been thinking about the Roman Empire that day, but only because I remember I had heard some Latin phrase, and I can't recall what it is at this point, but like it was something Latin, and that had somehow gotten me thinking about Greece and Rome, and I was like, okay, so I was like, but I guess like to your point, so much of our culture comes from that period of time, both those periods of time, that it's just like yeah, like things are just gonna make you think about the Roman Empire sometimes, just like
It's a bit. I'd be careful to say our culture. Our culture is very different from the
oh
Romans
well,
and such.
no, I'm not saying it's not the same. I just mean like it's obviously a lot of culture in general, things like art, language, all that sorts of thing. Philosophy comes from a lot of those time periods. So
Uh,
sometimes when you're in trains of thought on those things, you'll think about the Roman Empire, and suddenly, oh no, I'm thinking about it again.
yeah. Actually, thank God marble did not exist in ancient times because you know the phrase "the die is cast" that Julius Caesar said at, or at least he supposedly said as he went across the Rubicon. That was a reference to a Greek play he had seen.
Well, actually, the Rubicon's a
Uh,
reference to Armor Core 6. So,
yes, I'm also aware of that. The Greek play originally referenced Armed Core 6 as well. And it's all just one big
they
reference
they
to
they
Armed
were
Core 6.
they were so ahead of their time. Those Greeks. I mean, the Japanese are only just starting in concept. They're only just starting to get into mechs as much as the Greeks were.
The funny thing is, since I've been getting you into Fate, literally all when they eventually do the Greek Lost Belt in Fate Grand Order, it's all just so much fucking like science fiction show. Just like, yep, all these great monsters and such. Yeah, they're just mechanical monstrosities here because the Greek gods are like, we're gonna become mechanically perfect. And it's like that's the gayest shit I've ever heard. Like, please stop.
Well, that seems like a great
Just
transition into the episode.
a transition, you say? Yes.
So today we are
Yes.
talking about what. So when rewatching it, I was thinking this might actually be my favorite episode of the first season. Uh, we'll
Whoa. Walk that one back. Walk it back.
okay. First off, I
Because
said
we have
might.
someone come. I just said might. That doesn't help your case here. Like,
Okay,
listen,
so
this is a good episode.
look, I
Mm,
guess the
But
reason I like it is in part because there's kind of there's three plot lines here, all of them sort of intertwined, and I kind of just like all of them. like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this is better than Duet, but I just kind of think there's one issue with one of the plot lines I do have, but generally I think like it's a fairly well contained episode, well written, well acted. And of course, it kind of
Yeah.
redeems one character that people really did not like from TNG.
Yay!
All right,
It's
so
her. She's gonna do
yeah,
the thing.
I mean, yeah, we'll leave that until we arrive there. So, uh, the episode, I'm gonna make sure I get some visuals here. The episode starts off with Bashir having to deal with three ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
one of them is Vulcan. I can't remember who the blue guys are. One of them, I believe, is
Uh,
Bajoran, and I don't know what species the blue guy is, but
Melian.
they're all basically being incredibly obstinate, constantly making demands of the Doctor, wanting to see the captain, and Bashir's constantly trying to keep them down. It's like, no, I'm sorry, Commander Cisco's busy, and they're like, oh, well, with what? And he's like, oh, we're doing a recalibration sweep. And they're so demanding and annoying. It's kind of like, it's meant to be obviously very funny.
Yeah.
And let's see, I'm trying to think of if there's any like nuggets of like a great line in here. It really is just kind of funny when you see Bashir struggling. I don't know how the chief medical officer gets stuck with delegation duty, but apparently he does.
Yep.
So so I guess I
Sucker.
could talk about that little story I have. So I've done some work in politics, and I remember working with a particular delegation myself. And I won't say anything else, but I will say they were insanely rude. So maybe that's just like an ambassador thing.
Wait, was this No, the Finnish thing was in university, wasn't it?
Uh, no,
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I
but
remember. Have you
it was
considered
just
that the common element is you, Hollow? Perhaps you're the rude one.
perhaps. Well, maybe I'm just a magnet for people being rude to me. You are my friend after all.
That's true, though. That's true, though. I am a problem maker. I am a problem maker.
But anyway, so at one point, Bashir tries to distract them by saying, "Oh, why don't we do one of the holodeck programs?" And I guess Taxco, I think she's the Bajoran woman. It looks like, and she basically
No,
is like
She's not a Bajoran. She's an Arbazan, like another species. Because
trying to
it's
like
like these are
increase my view. Okay, yeah,
these are
okay,
like
yeah, she definitely looks different.
Yeah, these are like Federation and I assume they had something going on. Yeah, they're like they're Federation ambassadors on a fact-finding mission to the wormhole. Basically, it's like, hey, we're sending diplomatic people here.
Yeah, but I
Why
guess
they
like my
have to send
brain.
four different ones, I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of like like part of the power sharing dynamic. That we, you agree there has to be some sort of power sharing thing going on in the Federation, right?
Well,
Like,
you mean
it's
like
not.
power sharing in the sense of like they're all basically like individuals who are just in this like loose group known as the Federation or something like that?
Basically it's like, oh, like there has to be like these four ambassadors because none of them want to risk like, oh, if it's only a Vulcan, like like Vulcan. Like
Well,
everyone
it's
knows
it's
Vulcans.
weird. It's weird because we do know that there are Vulcan research vessels, which
Mm-hmm.
presumably are stocked with exclusively Vulcans, and
Yeah.
they've gone through the wormhole themselves. So it is a little bit like questionable in terms of what exactly do the other members of the Federation like tolerate? Because obviously the Vulcans are one of the founding members, so they probably have a significant amount of power in the
Mm-hmm.
Federation. But if I was one of the other like organizations or one of the other governments or planet systems in the Federation, and I heard the Vulcans were getting like, oh yeah, we're allowed to send our research vessels through the wormhole, and you were not allowed to do that. Like suddenly there's like, wait a minute.
So I don't think it's ever stated that they're not allowed to. It's just like saying like, hey, do you want to send a vessel through here? Do you often send science vessels through, or are you fine relying on the Vulcans? I
No,
feel like they're
I'm sure they're fine relying on the Vulcans, but I was kind of speaking mostly to what you said, where it's like clearly the Vulcans are going to find more information and research and data out there than they are if they're not sending research vessels. So
Mhm.
one alternative is you have quite possibly millions of ships trying to go through there every day,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like they get it seems like they're fairly busy, but I kind of wonder. You're right. What I think
Yeah.
one thing that I don't think it's a problem with DS9, but we really don't see how the wormhole affects the greater like Alpha Quadrant. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we don't ever get an episode where like I don't know, Cisco has to go to the Federation. You know, he has to go to Earth and talk to like some sort of committee within the Federation and explain to them like a situation with the wormhole. Right? We don't see any sort of
Right.
context of like, okay, we suddenly have like effectively what is the greatest unused trade route suddenly has just spontaneously appeared. And now it's like, oh, we all want to use it, but we all need information, and Cisco would be the main source of that information. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we get a lot of insight into what other people sort of view the wormhole as, or other like politics sort of view. Now, I'm sure that's sort of just happening behind the scenes, and this is kind of evidence of that. They are sending
Mm-hmm.
ambassadors, but
Yeah.
yeah, so like they're all arguing. This lady who is not a Bajoran, but I can't remember, I don't know what her species is. She's basically yelling that you want us to use one of those disgusting Ferengi sex programs, which again, another acknowledgement that that is what holodecks are for. And Bashir's like, no, 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 there's
Yeah.
plenty of non inappropriate ones. Uh, let's see. Oh, and then of course there's more lines about talking about all this sex stuff, and then suddenly a scream from a garishly dressed, bewigged Betazoid is at the Dabo table. If you can guess who this is,
It's her.
you get some pike points.
Pike point. I'm sorry, you cannot just give out my pike points without my permission. Like,
Okay, all right, all right. How many pike? I'm not saying how many. So you get to decide the number. I'm just saying I'm pretty sure you'd give out the pike points for
three.
someone. All right, 3 pike points. I already put it on screen, so no one can really guess without like. So it doesn't even matter anymore. But it's Luxwana Troy, the mom of Diana Troy. Everyone loves her.
Yeah. Not in TNG. Not in
Yeah.
TNG.
So I guess we'll talk a little bit about that. So Luxana Troy is unlike her daughter, is like a true telepath. She can read other people's memories.
Yeah, because she's a full base. She's not
Yeah, and
mixed.
from what I remember in TNG, like it's incredibly accurate. Like obviously it might vary from species to species, but she can basically I don't think she knows exactly the words you're thinking necessarily. So if you think like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I'm going like I find this woman so annoying." I don't think she knows that you said those exact words, but she senses, "Oh, he finds me annoying."
Yeah.
So, and meanwhile, Diana, she can only really get like maybe vaguer concepts. Oh, the person appears annoyed, but she doesn't necessarily know what they're annoyed at. So
Hmm.
Diana seems to have like actual true like telepathy, able to borderline read minds or get incredibly close to it. And of course, this leads her to both be frustrating towards Picard and kind of be frustrating towards the general audience. I don't think she was ever very like enjoyable. She kind of came across as obnoxious, and
Hmm.
I don't think it worked. Now, spoilers, she's phenomenal in DS9. She's a really good character. And
Yeah.
I think I have a reason why, and we'll get to it. But I think a big part of it is while she gives off a lot of the same sort of impression at the start, who she ends up bouncing off of and certain events that happen over the course of the episode really endear you to her to the point where,
Hmm.
I mean, if I was to put her in a ranking, which is weird because I think she only appears in like 4 or 5 episodes at max. Like she doesn't appear in a lot of episodes
Three
in
in
DS9.
DS9. I think three in TNG.
Well, okay, so 3 episodes in DS9. She appears in 3 episodes, so she probably doesn't appear in a lot of rankings. But I mean, I give her a B, maybe even an A. She's a really enjoyable character. She has
Yeah.
like who she like, and again, who she bounces off of really helps you explore a lot of that character. And I think that might be the reason why it works so well. A character who is a
Hmm.
telepath can naturally get to like certain aspects of a character that would not normally be exposed. Now, I don't think this worked when it was paired with Picard because Picard is kind of the main character of TNG. We already knew a lot about him, and we're
Yeah.
definitely going to experience more of this character. Meanwhile, Luxwana, who she interacts with, he's very reserved. Generally, we don't know anything about him at this point. DS9 is much more of an ensemble cast than TNG is in the sense of like every character getting closer to equal focus. So
Right.
it's we have a lot less time with each individual character, but what that means is when you have this opportunity here, you can really kind of push and explore a character in a way that
Yeah.
generally you would not be able to explore this kind of person. So Like that's why I think
Right.
it works a lot better here than just with Picard. Because I think what episode did she first appear in TNG? Like what season and episode?
Uh, I
Well, let me take a drink of water.
thirsty bitch, thirsty little bitch. She first appeared. I think. Was it Haven? Might have been Haven.
Okay, but like what episode and
Uh,
season?
Season 1, episode 11. Haven.
All right, all right. So I mean,
Yeah, it's the episode where basically Troy's arranged marriage is supposed to happen, and Luxwan comes to prepare for that, but she really wants to fuck Picard. She really wants to fuck Picard.
well, we see a resurgence of
Um,
that character trait. But one thing I think also sort of helps here is
mhm,
you know Diana kind of clearly finds her mom annoying, and that helps paint the picture of viewers on who the mom is. And even
mhm,
even here, like her personality is one where it's like, yeah, it could definitely grate on someone. It really kind of depends on how the series contextualizes it. And of course, the first thing they do in TNG is they contextualize it as it's kind of annoying. Deanna's embarrassed by
yeah,
her mom. She finds her mom a bit too much. So it's like we, as someone who we've followed Diana Troy up until this point. So we're sympathetic with her. If she finds her mom annoying, we're gonna find her annoying. That's probably not the
yep,
best route to go with a character, unless you can really sort of play with that. Because an annoying character is still annoying, right? I think it's really hard to do annoying characters in terms of writing because
mhm,
you gotta ride that line of they're annoying in universe and people can understand that, but it's not annoying for the people viewing the character so that they're not annoyed by the story.
mhm,
It's a pretty fine line. So Luxana
yeah,
Luxana screams, and we see her. She's in this like pink outfit. Or no, she's a pink hair, very pink and red outfit, and she's screaming that she has apparently lost a brooch of hers, and she's one of the ambassadors as well. And
mm,
suddenly, let's see, it's funny because she yells like, "I just had my let's see, da, da, da. Oh, immediately Bashir screams at Quark because he assumes he would have taken the brooch.
mhm.
And Latsana
Pretty fair,
explains that
pretty.
she had just had her third straight cross, which I guess is a good thing in whatever dice game she's playing. She's playing Dabo, so and then she had said she had been something had brushed against her and she had been stolen from. She said, "I've been wigged," which is a funny little pun because she's wearing a wig.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Quark comes over and says, "What's the problem? Someone has stolen Ambassador Troy's brooch," and Laxwana immediately starts blaming Quark. She grabs him. It's like, let's see. Hold on. Oh, Quark kind of brushes her off. It's like, "Look, I'm very busy. I don't have time for your lost brooch." And she grabs his ear and starts screaming how she's the daughter of the fifth house, holder of the sacred chalice of Rix, heir to the holy rings of Beta Zed. A real Daenerys title there. She's
Mm.
pulling his ear. I want to see if I can get an image of it because it is funny. Yeah, and let's see, and he screams in my ear. She's like, "Yes, and I know where it hurts the most, you little troll. Now I want this room sealed, and I want everyone in it strip searched until you find my brooch." So like this is already really funny how obsessive she is at finding this brooch and what she's demanding of people.
Yeah,
But then, of course, we have Constable Odo arrives, ready to solve a crime. So,
did I hear crime?
yeah,
Crime.
here's the thing: either he was right there, already watching Quark because he knew Quark was going to get in some trouble, or he sensed
Yeah,
crime nearby and he appeared. I like either description.
it,
Let's
it's a
see.
it's an Odo move.
So she
It's an
complains
Odo
that
move.
the brooch has been in her family for 6 generations. Let's see. Oh, and while she's freaking out, Odo is incredibly rational and calm, and he says, "I see. So you're a Betazoid?" She's like, "Yes." He's like, "You're telepathic, and you sense guilt from anyone else in this room, right?" So it's like clearly
Mm-hmm.
she's panicking because she's lost her brooch, but she's forgotten her greatest tool, which Odo reminds her of.
Yeah.
She closes her eyes and does it and says, "No, but Betazoids cannot read Ferengis." Okay, I think that's something that was established in TNG. And then
Yeah.
Odo comes to the defense of Quark. He's like, "Look, Quark has plenty of reasons to feel guilty, but he usually doesn't have to resort to petty theft to fleece his clients." At which point, Odo sort of examines the room, and he immediately goes over to this other guy and just grabs him and pulls the brooch out, like tells him to empty his pockets, and he gets the brooch.
Yep.
So she asks him, that's my brooch. How did you know? And, we have a little bit of a problematic Odo here, profiling people. He says, Dapterians are distant relatives of the Ferengi. It made sense that you couldn't read Quark. You might not be able to read this charming fellow either. So if she sensed no guilt, it could only be one of two people. And Odo knows it's not Quark. So pretty good deductive reasoning.
One of two people looks at his entire staff of fucking Ferengi. It's like
That's
I mean,
true.
technically,
That is actually a plot. That's probably a plot hole, unless none of his staff are here. But that wouldn't make any sense.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, it might be a case of like, so while Quark is fine, so Quark makes kind of a point in other episodes where it's like, he gets mad at Rom at one point for returning a coin purse to somebody who dropped it. It's like, if they drop it, we keep it. It's like, but I don't think Quark would necessarily say, hey, steal it while they're playing the game.
Oh, no, 100%. If one of his staff members got caught stealing from somebody, that would reflect on him and his business.
Yeah, so well, I think there would be basically the policy of like, listen, if they drop it and you can get away with picking it up and just taking it, it's fine. But there's no, you're going to pickpocket them, because that would, yeah.
Well, I also think if you are Odo in this context, those employees, their name, there's probably an existing record of them as employees. You're not going to necessarily want to search them immediately. You'd want to find the people who theoretically could vanish into somewhere in space. So he went to the only other possibility, which again, I guess that makes it so it's not really a plot hole, but you're right. Like, there should have been maybe some evidence of would if one of the other staff did it, but there's not really an acknowledgement of that. However, the scene ends with Odo saying, like, nodding, and he leaves and takes the prisoner with him. And Lwaxana grabs Bashir's arm and says, I want to know everything about your security chief. So she has a new focus. Picard is old news. Odo is the new eye candy.
I mean, this is I think Roddenberry's wife saying this, so it's like funny that you know the story of like Picard getting the job and how much Roddenberry was against it at first because he wasn't a young like Horatio Nelson type. He was like, bald, a Shakespearean actor and such.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny, like, yes, another Roddenberry, just be like, Picard, old news. This man, new news. Anyway.
Yeah, I think Roddenberry was still alive at this time, because he did die at some point through DS9. I can't recall when.
When did Roddenberry die? We can find out right now. I think he died, like, after season 2 of TNG,
yeah, that's when I think it happened, because a lot of people sort of cite there definitely felt like there was a shift in the vision of DS9 post season 3. But oh, go on.
It was in development when DS9, like, DS9 was in development, but it started after Roddenberry died.
So he would have already. They would have already. Yeah, they would have already had the first few episodes planned and designed and written and stuff like that. So I think that might have been why I had the mistake. But it's very consistent, I suppose, that Lwaxana is like attracted to the stoic, serious man, because both Picard and Odo sort of fill that role.
And later on in the show, she kind of gets another one, but that one isn't a good one. She has a type. She has a type.
So we cut to Ops, and we see that O'Brien is a little bit annoyed because nothing in the system seems to be working. It's a lot of technobabble. I don't really know if we need to go over it, but basically, Sisko's getting incredibly frustrated. He ends up hitting the console. Sisko tells him to calm down. And then O'Brien, hold on, this is actually funny. He says, calm down, it's just a computer. And O'Brien says, this is no computer, this is my archenemy. With all due respect, Commander, as an engineer, I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I allowed this computer to perform as it is now. I have to do a root canal. And Cisco being very confused at O'Brien's like terminology. He's like, "Look, it's just engineering shorthand. I'm gonna have to get into its guts and rebuild her from the ground up." Cisco asks, "How long is that gonna take?" And O'Brien says, "I'd guess no more than 2-3 years." Um,
No, Brian. We
well,
no.
in all
No.
fairness, that would be something that you would eventually do. Like, we need these long scale projects, something that they can constantly be working on. But,
Yeah.
obviously, like, because if they're going to keep the station for the foreseeable future, if it's like, okay, 3 years in terms of like how long are we going to really have this station?
Hmm.
Cisco's basically like, is this really necessary? He's like, look, you don't understand. Uh, let's see. Like, O'Brien's basically just complaining that the computer seems to just never be cooperating with him. Um,
Hmm.
da, da, da. All right, and then O'Brien or Bashir arrives, having brought the ambassadors to Ops. Let's see. Apparently,
Killed it.
they had insisted upon seeing operations. Uh, Cisco keeps trying to basically like brush them off. They're demanding that they change accommodations. They don't want to be like, it's like, oh, like you want your accommodations changed? Like, if I have to sleep another night on a Cardassian bed with gargoyles staring at me from the wood poles, it's like she doesn't get to finish that statement, and Kira sort of interjects. Apparently, something was coming through the wormhole, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, we get to show the ambassadors the wormhole." The ambassadors are incredibly rude to Kira. No, they're incredibly rude to Dax. And they're like, "Who's this? Like, what's this young woman doing? Are you sure she's competent enough to do her job?" And tells them, "Yeah, she's about over 300 years old in terms of her knowledge. Maybe we shouldn't question her."
Yeah. Put the
So
fucking Vulcan. Put the
again,
well.
yeah, put the Vulcan in his place. Although, man, Vulcans always look different. Like, some of them, I guess they just have a wide variety of how they look, because some are very like normal human complexion and skin colors. Obviously we have Tuvok in Voyager, who's black.
Voyager.
But some of them, they look so sickly pale, and like I get they have copper blood, but come on, it's just kind of like, well, it's like I don't know,
Yeah.
man. They look terrifying. Like, this guy, look right here. I'm not gonna lie, he looks like a vampire. Like, I don't know if you can
Hmm.
get a picture of the Vulcan in this one. He, like, if this guy was playing a vampire, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. There's vampires in Star Trek, I guess. But
Yeah.
so they all get like, they try to distract the ambassadors by showing them the wormhole, and once they see it open and close, they're like, that's it. So you just cannot please these people.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
the ship that comes through is some sort of, let's see. I'm trying to see like where it has any information. Oh, they can't read anything from it. It has apparently some odd subprocessor patterns. So what they're going to do is they're going to like get into the docking ring so they can do a better scan of it. Yeah, and then we move
Yeah.
to back to Odo in the security office,
The
and
auto game.
Luxwana walks in. She's wearing a new dress. It's like a blue dress now, very revealing. So she just like, oh, and
She's making moves.
she's also wearing a new wig. So she has a red
Making
wig now.
moves.
Like, I mean, sure, I guess like that was her ambassador outfit and ambassador wig. This is her seduction outfit and seduction wig. Let's
Hey,
see.
baby.
So, she sort of comes in. She's like, "Ooh, such concentration, such intensity, such a passion for your work, tracking the intergalactic malefactors," which is a great term. Uh, Odo sort of comments,
She did that work.
most people find this rather tedious. He actually seems a little bit proud that she's sort of treating his job as this grand thing.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Oh,
"Tedious?
someone
No,
who
no."
appreciates the. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think, Odo is, we've already seen that he doesn't really need to. He doesn't need other people to recognize the quality of his work, but it seems like he does at least
But it's
appreciate
nice.
it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
let's see. Uh, oh, so she asks him, like, "Oh, tedious? No, those of us who have been beneficiaries of your heroism would never call your work tedious." And Odo is just trying to be like, "Look, it's my job. Now, what can I do to you? You haven't lost anything else." And she's like, "Only my heart." And Odo is very confused. Odo is very
Oh no.
confused. He's like, "What?" And she's sort of like, at this point, she's getting very up close and personal to him. Uh, he is incredibly uncomfortable. And, she's like, Odo, is that your first or last name? And he's just like, yes. Let's see. So let's see. She's like, oh, your name has an almost lyrical quality. Odo's just constantly like, lyrical? What are you talking about? She's like, it just rolls off the tongue. He's like, I need to get back to work.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
incredibly forward. Oh, this is an incredibly. I'm stuck on a frame. I can't show it to you, but I'm stuck on a frame where this would not be appropriate for a thumbnail. It looks like Odo is enjoying it a
She's
little bit
going
too
for it.
much. So she's like, look, I understand you're a shapeshifter. He's like, yes. And she's like, I've never been with a shapeshifter. Insane. Like,
Oh.
I mean, I don't think we could stress how forward she is. I mean, I think she'd have been less forward if she walked into the office naked. She says, like, I hear you're the only one of your kind. She's like, all the men I've known have needed to be shaped and molded and manipulated. Finally, I met a man who knows how to do it himself. It's like, oh my god, woman. And then
Calm
Odo was like, wait, is that the comm? I gotta go. And he just leaves.
Oh no.
He is
Look at the time.
trying to get like her smug appearance as he's leaving. It's like, dear God, this woman.
She knows she's winning.
Let's
She
see.
knows.
Meanwhile, in Ops, they're apparently transferring some of the data from the probe into their computer. That's just something we'll see going forward. But then Odo goes to Cisco. Let's see. Cisco's first assumption is, oh, is Quark up to something again?
Yeah.
Let's see. And he's like, no, this problem has the name of Luxwana. And he says that there's a minor incident at the bar I helped her with, and now she's grateful. And Cisco's like, what's the problem? The manner in which she expresses her gratitude. Odo claims she's extremely aggressive, and Cisco's claiming, like, kind of laughing, like smiling, like, oh, so she's into you. Like, you don't need to dodge around the question here. Odo says she is like
Yeah.
a Wanoni tracehound. All right, I guess that's just a bloodhound or something like that in space. And
Yep.
then Odo says, well, have you thought about letting her catch you? Cisco is really doing a good job wingmanning for Luxwana.
Well, you know why, don't you? Like, one less problem for him to deal with to put on Bashir, who's about to snap.
True.
He realized he's heard. Sorry, he's heard the reports of like what she's like, right? So it's like I need to keep her distracted and happy and such. And it's like okay, and Bashir's about to snap and pull a me on the other three. I can't give her to him. So instead, oh no, you're fucked. Get fucked. It's your problem now, bud.
Well,
Like-
that does sort of tie into the next conversation because he's like, look, I have all this work to do, and frankly, in my humble opinion, most of your humanoids spend far too much time on your respective mating rituals. And Cisco's like, it does help for the procreation of the species, and Odo's like, procreation does not require changing how you smell, or writing bad poetry, or sacrificing various plants to serve as tokens of affection. In any event, it's all irrelevant to me. It's like, so, I'm trying to think, like, most animals do have some form of mating ritual, but usually, like, it usually represents some aspect of like here's a trait of mine that is desirable. I get how Odo looks at it. I'm not criticizing it, but it's kind of like I've seen this like mindset in other media presented where like a robot is like, why are your mating rituals so complicated or something like that, right? And it's like, well, you're trying to present to a potential partner like how like you'd be a good partner. So yeah, so it's like, if giving flowers like, oh, is that necessary? It's like, no, but it kind of shows that you care. You're willing to kind of go out of your way, maybe spend money, maybe pick the flowers yourselves. You're trying to appeal to the person. You're trying to show that you're attentive to what they might want. So, and obviously, like changing how you smell. Let's be fair. No one wants to be with someone who stinks. So I don't know, Odo. Maybe you're looking at it a little bit too reductively. But anyway.
Yeah, but he doesn't care. He doesn't.
So Odo basically just like cuts the chase. It's like I would appreciate it if you would do something about this woman. And Cisco's like, me. He's like, yeah, you. He's like, Constable, you can handle thieves and killers, but not one Betazoid woman. Tell her yourself. Oop, I got feedback from you.
Oh, well, that's
no, it's fine. It's not consistent. I guess it was just a one-time thing. But and Cisco's just like, look, I can't help you, Odo. And Odo's like, look, I'm just trying to avoid a diplomatic incident. I don't want to insult the ambassador. And he's just like, a reasonable concern. I suggest you handle the matter with great delicacy. So he's just like, no, I am not helping you.
That's a you problem, Chief.
Yes.
You.
We get a little bit more on the probe. Let's see. Basically, it's just they're noting it has a lot of strange details and origins, and it's somewhere from. Technically, it's something that can travel very far, very fast. That's all we kind of get from this next scene. Although, admittedly, I think the character we see here, she actually plays a role in the finale of this season. She's the one of the other engineering women. She's a Bajoran, I guess, one of the Bajoran staff members. So
The
it's
one
not,
who's involved in plot. Yeah.
well, so it's that's something I think we mentioned before, where DS9 does do a pretty good job at, if they're gonna, if they need to like emphasize a threat by killing off like a side character or something like that, or have a side character do something in the plot, they're very good at introducing that character or showing them off a little bit beforehand. Right? So she doesn't get much here. I'm not saying like we have like any knowledge of her character, but they show us that she's working here so that when we see her later, we can immediately be like, oh yeah, that's the Bajoran woman who works in the ops with on DS9. Right? It's a very simple thing that can kind of make the world seem a little bit more cohesive. Sometimes this happened a lot on original Star Trek. The joke of the red shirts being a thing, where it's like we need to put a random red shirt on the mission with the main crew, and the red shirt gets killed so that you understand the threat. Meanwhile, like TNG was sort of similar, where it would introduce like these side characters where it's like, oh, this character is important for this episode, and then either we never see them again, or they die, or they leave, or something happens. But they were maybe a member of the ship, and this is just our first time seeing them. Which, again, not impossible. It's not a bad thing. I just think that it's nice that DS9 goes that extra mile to say, no, we're gonna turn these people who you think they're kind of just background extras, they're actually characters for a later episode.
Use what you got.
Well, I just think it shows what we're kind of talking about when we praise DS9, which is there was a lot of care and thought put into this craft, and obviously the more thought and care you put into something, the better the end product generally. So it's nice that we can see little bits of evidence, because sometimes it's hard to tell what good writing is, but stuff like this, it goes a long way to sort of showing off, like, oh, they clearly had foresight. They're going to make sure that we feel that this is a cohesive world and cohesive staff on the station. So, immediately, like, again, this is just another small scene building up that plot line, which I do kind of like. And we cut back to Odo, who is desperately trying to avoid Luxwana. He's like looking around the turbo lift, making sure he doesn't see her before he tries to run back to his office. And of course, she cuts him off. Again, in another wig and another dress.
Boy. She's got moves to put on, man. She's got to do it.
I find it very interesting. She like literally after, because what I imagine happened, right, is after she met with Odo the first time, or in his office, he immediately goes to ops to get help from Cisco. So she immediately runs back to her room, changes her outfit, changes her wig, and then rushes back to the turbo lift to meet him.
Yeah, it's peacocking. Like,
well, I mean, she is clearly very committed.
Oh yeah.
But also, it's just fun seeing this character do constant outfit changes. So she cuts him off. She's like, there you are, Odo. And Odo is basically like, oh, let me, I gotta get back on the turbo lift. Oh, I'm so sorry. And she's like, oh, let me join you. And she's like, have you ever been to the fourth moon of Endeavian 2 at dawn? And he's like, can't say I have. And she's like, well, I got one of those wonderful holo programs and reserved a suite for us and for Quarks. And he's like, wait, you told Quark you're going to a holo suite with me? And she's like, yes, he's preparing a special picnic for us. Which I just love the idea that Quark is like, holy crap, I can make sure Odo gets put in an awkward situation, because Quark probably knows Odo well enough to be like, he hates this woman. I need to make sure that they interact. And then, of course, there's the more deceivious Quark, who, I'm sure if you asked him, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to set up Odo? It's like, because if he's distracted with a woman, he's not paying attention to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, we know for a fact that's something he does later on.
Yeah. So, and also, like, let's be fair, we know what the holosuite programs are used for at Quarks mostly. They reference it in this episode. So there's always that worry. If someone knows you're going to a holosuite program, it's like, all right, buddy, have fun. Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge.
So uh, the turbo lift starts going up. Odo says like, "Oh, good lord!" And Odo says, "Look, I'm afraid I'm just not available. I have to go to an upper pylon 3 immediately." Luxana gets on the turbo lift with him, and she says, "He's like, I've always wanted to see an upper pylon."
A pylon, huh?
And she's like, "Look, I'll
A
have Quark
pylon.
send one of his minions with our basket. We'll have our picnic up there." I find it funny that she refers to Quark's staff as minions. I think it's a little mean, but it definitely fits her character. And
Yeah.
Odo's basically just constantly saying, "Madam Ambassador," trying to get her to stop talking for a second so he can speak. And she
Yeah.
tells him to call him Luxwana. It's so hard to pronounce her name. And he's like, "Look, I do not
Laquana.
eat. This is not a real mouth. This is an approximation of one. I do not have an esophagus or a stomach or a digestive system. I'm not like you. Every 16 hours, I turn into a liquid." And of course, she says the great line, "I can swim."
Yeah. Here we go.
And then, of course, because this becomes a bottle episode, the lights on the turbo lift turn off, and Odo cannot reach the computer.
Fucked now, boy.
I want to get like I need to get like this image for the thumbnail. It's just her doing the whole "I can swim" line.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
you do.
every 60. Oh, I think this is the second time they've mentioned Odo has that limit that he basically has to rest every 16 hours.
Yeah. With out of
So
a 26-hour day, which is weird.
I mean, that's basically like sleeping, but we also don't know how long he has to remain as a liquid.
Yeah, but the issue is that's not an even so. I mean, I guess I'm assuming he does 8 hours, which it's never said, but it's like, oh, every 16 hours, it's like, okay, so do you have to rest 10 hours?
Well, we
Otherwise,
don't know he
it's
has to.
like,
I mean, theoretically, he might only need to rest 4.
no, because I mean, yes, maybe, but the issue then is it's not a consistent schedule, or it's
Well,
overly
so it
complicated
theoretically
schedule.
could be, right? So, it theoretically could be because just because he has to do it every 16 hours doesn't mean he doesn't like he can't turn briefly into it again. So like, he turns into, let's say he only needs to do it for like 2 hours every 16 hours, and then like, okay, so let's see that's 18. And he has 8 hours left. He has 8 hours of quote unquote like free time. If he spends like 4 of those like doing whatever he wants, and then another 4 resting, like he could theoretically reset the timer anytime he rests.
I
I
guess,
mean,
yeah.
it's really not super specific, and who knows? He might remember it because, like, we know the Enterprise has 3 shift schedule, so
Hmm.
8 hours on, 16 hours off, and then another like 8 hours of those will probably be sleep, and the rest of the 8 hours are your free time, probably.
Hmm.
But theoretically, right, Odo might have like a schedule similar to that. But either way, so she says she can swim, and let's see. They finally do reach Kira. They're stuck in the turbo lift, and turns out that power to the pylon turbo lifts have failed. They're trying to rework it again. Now something's going down with the computers. It seems to be a problem, but they also can't. For some reason, they also cannot transport them out of the turbo lift.
Hmm.
And let's
Why?
see. Da, da, da. Oh yeah, Kira tells Odo to be patient. Uh, we'll get you out of there as soon as we can. And Luxana is like, alone at last.
No.
Hold on, and then you get
Oh
this
no.
absolutely horrified expression from Odo as he's just like, "Oh God, I'm stuck in an elevator with this woman."
Yes.
I think they do like a
You
fade to
do.
black. Yeah, they do like a dolly zoom into his face and fade to black. It's like, oh my God, I don't think Odo has ever been this terrified. I'm unsure what should be the thumbnail. If it should be this image of Odo or it should be Luxana saying she can swim.
Odo, Odo, absolutely Odo, Odo,
True,
Odo.
true,
100.
true. It would allow someone to try and get those early pike points.
Oh my god.
If I spoil that
Oh
Luxana's in
my.
it, like it wouldn't be very good. So
Yeah.
let's see. Oh, they make a point that like for some reason the electromotive coil, like a lot of techno babble,
Hmm.
and
Standard Star Trek. Standard
let's
Star
see. I'm
Trek.
trying to because like this is where let's see. if we were on a starship, so basically O'Brien can't fix this right now. It's going to take a little bit longer to fix this. And then Kira basically calls Odo, tells him this, says it's going to be there. You're going to be there a while. She doesn't know how long, but then she says, by the way, Cardassian turbolifts run exposed multi-phase alternating currents through their positioning mechanisms, so don't try and shapeshift your way out. So she kind of immediately was like, you're going to try and escape? Don't kill yourself. Well, I want to see, because I know she kind of has a bit of a... It's hard to show, but she does have a little bit of a smug sound to her voice. Like, she kind of knows, like, I know you're going to leave. But...
God. I just thought of something mean to say.
What?
I'm not going to say it, though. I would spoil future stuff.
Oh, yeah. Series. Okay, so yeah, don't say it. But let's see. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Odo says he wouldn't think of it, and Lexana says it would be rude if you just abandoned me. Let's see. Do you suppose... she asks if he actually thinks they're in any danger, and we actually see a little bit of, like, vulnerability here. She does seem a little bit scared. Odo says not if we remain calm. And then she says, well, we might as well enjoy ourselves. Take the opportunity to get to know each other. And Odo's like, look, I prefer to pass the time quietly. She's like, oh, okay. It's a little funny exchange. She's like, quietly? And he's like, yes, quietly. So she's quiet for a few seconds. That's it. Only a few seconds.
Yep.
And she says, you know, I've always been attracted to quiet men. Odd, isn't it? But maybe there's more truth than we realize to the old axiom that opposites, and Odo gives her a look. And she's like, yes, quietly. And it's actually kind of nice because then she sits down and she says, you know, Odo, I don't think I can. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you don't have to say another word as long as we're here, but I think I really need to talk. And, you know, I think this is really nice. It's showing that the reason she's being so talkative right now, as opposed to when she's always talkative, is she's worried and she just needs to talk to not be worried.
Yeah.
I think it's a very realistic thing. She wants to keep her mind off the fact that they're stuck in some sort of, you know, turbo lift on a space station that, let's be fair, it's not always maintained super well.
Yeah.
And Odo immediately catches on to what she means by that. Let's see. I'm trying to she looks incredibly distraught that she needs to talk. She's like, look, I do need to talk. I can't just be quiet here. And he says he understands. He sits down next to her and says there's nothing to be afraid of. And again, even if there was nothing else to this scene, I think this would be great already. You have a character you have a character who doesn't outright admit it, but shows vulnerability, and you have another character recognizes it, doesn't go outright and says anything about it, but then immediately just sort of moves into, yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of. Don't worry, we're all good. And then Lexana starts immediately talking more so that she can that she can remain calm. And it's funny, I have the transcript in front of me right here. She has unironically an entire paragraph of dialogue here. That's like the most dialogue I've seen in any of this transcripts without any interruption.
Yeah.
So she says she references the time that she and her daughter were trapped aboard a Ferengi cargo ship. So that was an episode in TNG. I believe it was let me check. Yeah, it was episode, let's see. Oh, it was the episode Ménage à Trois. Interesting name. Let's see. It doesn't tell me what episode this was. Doesn't matter. But she talks about that. She says, oh, it was dreadful. Well, all right. It wasn't actually dreadful. It was mildly lamentable. And it was all because of some loathsome daemon. Well, actually, he wasn't altogether loathsome. So she keeps saying stuff and then immediately going back on it. Meanwhile, Odo's face is just deadpan staring, and she he looks over at a part of the elevator, and
you're just thinking you just know.
She's like, oh, what are you looking at? He's like, oh, nothing. I'm just wondering how many volts are in that exposed circuit. Go on. He's like, can I do this without dying? Probably not. Go on. And then immediately she's like, well, frankly, one thing led to another, and that's when that scene ends. And it's actually just again, it's very good. And we have another good scene. So Bashir and Sisko were talking. Bashir's like, look, another hour with them and I could destroy my career. Sisko's like, look, it's a simple job. Everyone has to do it from time to time. You gotta get used to it. Everyone gets ambassador duty from from one time to another. And Bashir says, nothing makes them happy. They're dedicated to being unhappy and to spreading that unhappiness wherever they go. Let's see.
Hmm.
Oh, and Bashir asks, did you ever have to do this kind of assignment? And Cisco says, as a matter of fact, Curzon Dax used to take perverse pleasure in assigning me to take care of VIP guests. And Bashir says, oh, so now you're trying to take that perverse pleasure on me? And Cisco's like, yeah.
Of course.
He's like, you
Why
do
would I?
realize that, he is somewhat fresh from the academy, so there is probably a lot of hazing that he's experiencing. Let's see.
Yeah.
And Bashir says, may I ask what you did to graduate from that sort of assignment? Cisco says, the day I hit one of the guests. And Bashir just says, hit one, as if he's like, this is an idea. And Cisco says, look, it was a simple misunderstanding over his attempt to coax a young ensign to his quarters against her will.
Oh.
So yeah, Cisco punched the guy for a very good reason. And then he
Yep.
sort of leads Bashir out. He's like, but don't hit any of them, Doctor. I'm not nearly as understanding as Curzon was.
You need a
Like
good reason
basically,
to,
yeah,
and you're not making it up.
you need a good reason to, and if you do it otherwise, trust me, I will make you suffer. Let's see. So then O'Brien has something weird happening. And it's not easy to explain this because Bashir asks a question to the computer, and the computer responds as it always does. If you've watched, I don't know if we ever mentioned it because I doubt anyone's watching this without having ever seen Star Trek. But the voice of I can't remember who the name is, but the voice is the woman who did it in the original series, and she had the phonetic dictionary recorded in her voice so they could use her voice even after her death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was actually her. Like she
Okay.
wanted that. Apparently, she was like very proud of her work on like the original series, from what I remember. And she was like, well, yeah, like I think she had gotten sick, unfortunately, and she wanted her voice basically recorded so that it could always be used.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's a
that's
nice
nice.
little. Yeah,
That's
that's
sweet.
nice. It's kind of nice. Nowadays we worry about like studios using actors like appearances and stuff like that, and it seems very dystopian. But if that's what she wants, that could be a very nice thing that she gets to be part of this world. Even after death. But
Yep.
O'Brien is asking questions, and the computer's responding in exactly the same way. And O'Brien's like, "Did you hear that, sir?" And Cisco has no idea what's going on. And O'Brien's like, "Look, I want you to listen to it closely." Uh, he's like, "The voice, it's not the same attitude." And Cisco's like, "It's a computer." Like, it doesn't give attitude. He's like, "Sir, when you work with a computer as much as I do, you get to know it. They're all very different. Working with the Enterprise computer was like dancing the waltz. With this computer, it's always been like a wrestling match until we started downloading the probe." So O'Brien believes that there's more than just a program on that probe, and he believes the entire personality of the computer has changed. I don't think the computer has a personality, but O'Brien seems to think it does. And let's be fair,
Well,
O'Brien's probably right.
what he probably meant more like this is no longer acting the way I know this machine acts. Because you know how like, oh, you can get two different computers, but over time, due to the wear and tear and how it's used, it's like, yeah, different little cords appear in
So
the.
I've recently rewatched this episode. I know we watched it a while ago, but then I rewatched it like 3 days ago. No, he's literally referring to the way it speaks.
Okay, listen, shut up. Shut up. He's right.
No, he's probably right, but it's funny because that's the joke sort of the scene, right? Is he has the computer say the same thing twice, and he's like, "Did you hear it?" And Cisco can't hear anything. It just sounds like the same voice. I guess it'd be like when one of your
Yeah.
friends says something with a slightly different tone that you're kind of looking at them like, "I know what you're thinking." Like
Mm-hmm.
you said a very neutral
Mm-hmm.
thing, but I know you're not being like you have some sort of scheme going on. You probably get that from me a lot.
Um. Uh.
No, actually,
Perhaps.
that's true. I'm a lot more obvious with my schemes. Anyway, so O'Brien also
Mm.
comments, there's one other thing. Every time I leave, the computer does something to bring me back. Like, to the computer,
Mm.
let's see, the failures in the turbo lift and the transporters. A few minutes ago, I was working at the transpad and the comms.
Mm.
The comm lines went down, and when I broke for a quick bite to eat, we had a replicator failure. It's almost like the computer doesn't want me to leave it alone. And it's just like,
Mm.
you almost make it sound like it's a child. So apparently there is some sort of sentient program in the computer of DS9 now.
Yep. It's a dog.
Yeah, eventually they start referring to it as like a dog, but uh,
Yep.
it's very weird because like then they start talking about it and they're like, look, it must have been some sort of non-biological life form we've never seen before. It was put on that probe and sent away. And Kira makes a joke. It's like someone left a baby on the doorstep. And let's see.
Oh.
So it's part of the computer now, so it's really difficult to remove. I mean, let's be fair. It's an AI. It's probably impossible to remove. But this is
Oh
also
yeah.
This is also the 90s, so they didn't really have the same grasp at a lot of this, and they sort of look like an AI a lot simpler back then. So they're basically like, yeah, so we can. Basically going to try and trick it out of the computer because they can't remove it manually.
Right.
Like basically, if they want to be able to transfer the program off the station, it'll solve their problems. But again, it's the computer, so you can't use the computer to trick it. Let's see. So yeah, they're basically just coming up with a plan, and they want to put it back on the probe and just send the probe away.
Goodbye, Proby.
We get a lot of techno babble, and unfortunately none of it's working. We then let's see. Oh yeah, we cut to the ambassadors with Bashir, and they're walking down a court. Again, these ambassadors are being very ornery. Let's see. Da-da-da. Oh yeah, they're criticizing O'Brien because they think he's incompetent, and the lights in the station keep going off. And Bashir's defending O'Brien. He's like, look, he's the best in Starfleet. It's like, look, out here at the edge of the frontier, it's one adventure after another. Why don't I escort you back to your quarters where I'm sure we can all wait it out? I
Yeah.
mean, we
Right.
can kind of
Wait
cut
it out,
ahead.
boy.
We can kind of cut ahead. There's with their plot line because the station starts experiencing bigger issues. One of the pylons explodes while they're in it. So they're suddenly cut
Yeah.
off from the rest of the station and in danger, and it looks like they're consumed by fire. But this isn't much of a spoiler, I suppose, because everyone knows that they're not just going to kill these people off. You know, Bashir manages to do some quick thinking, but we'll get back to that because we get back to the best scenes. O'Brien or
Yay.
Odo and Lexana. Let's see.
Yay.
Where am I in the? Okay, here I am. So she's like, "Look, enough about me. Tell me more about you." And Odo's like, "About me? Like, there's not really much to say. I'm a private man." She starts asking, "Is that your real hair?" He's like, "No, it's a facsimile of hair." And she's like, "Where'd you get it from?" He's like, "Oh, well, the people who handled me when I was first being studied." And she's like, "Wait a minute. So you studied his hairstyle?" It's like I've studied many hairstyles. Let's see.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. Oh yeah, and Odo talks about the scientist who researched him. We do meet this guy eventually, but this is I think the first time that Odo's actually talked a little bit about his past.
Yeah.
She comments that it seems really sad that he grew up in a laboratory, and he's like, "I didn't really grow up. I just transitioned to what I used to be to what I learned to become." She says that sounds like it was very lonely. He's like, "Yeah, I've always been self-sufficient." Let's see. She's getting very personal, and eventually he just like sort of cuts her off, and he just goes, "Odo to ops, come on, someone talk to me," but he can't reach anybody. And she comments that he looks warm, and this is where he sort of reveals, like, da- da- oh, so she kind of feels like she might have offended him. If he doesn't want to talk about it, he's like, "No, no, no, not at all, not at all. I was kind of the life of the party when I was younger. Everyone always wanted me to transform into something, turn into a chair, turn into a, let's see, a razor cat." Which actually I believe is a plot hole, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because he doesn't. Isn't it like an established he doesn't know? No, wait, he knows rats at least because first
yeah,
episode.
well, so there's a. I guess we'll get into it now, but eventually Odo gets like told by he meets another member of his species, and Odo gets told, about all the different ways you can experience being something else. And he's basically like told
Mm-hmm.
he can transform into a bird and fly around. And he acts as if he never thought
Yeah.
about that before. But if you know you could turn into animals, why wouldn't you try turning into a bird? I don't
It
know.
might be a case of like, oh, it's very complicated, and when he initially hit that wall, like trying to figure that out, he's like, okay, this seems to not be something I can do. I'm going to
Well,
move on rather than,
knowing a little bit about
yeah.
Odo, I think it would be more of a character reason because the way it's sort of expressed is Odo only does his transformations when it's pragmatic.
Mm-hmm.
And the other changeling he's interacting with, they're trying to explain to him the joy it is to just be something else for a little while, and like how
Yeah.
fun it can actually be to just turn into a bird and fly around. Let's be fair. There's probably not a lot of reasons Odo needs to turn into a bird and fly around.
Yeah. Usually he can just like stay on like
Yeah,
use
but
surveillance system.
yeah, and he was told to do all these
Yeah.
transformations as like a party trick, and he's basically like, yeah, it was the life of the
Yeah.
party, and he just ends it with I hate parties. And Lexana, again,
Yeah.
another thing that really endears me to her. She says, perhaps you've been going to the wrong ones. Come to one of mine, Odo. I'll make sure that all the guests are the ones that entertain you. Like again,
Mm.
it's just her first response is I want you to enjoy this part of life. I'm gonna try and like make that so. I don't know. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And again, he kind of groans because he's not in a lot of pain, and she's like, "Look, you're clearly not well." He's like, "Yeah, remember how I mentioned I have to turn into a liquid every 16 hours? Well, I'm in hour 15."
Whee!
So he's seeming very uncomfortable. Yeah, like I want to get like an image of this. Yeah, he's Oda does not look well, and you know, good on the actor for portraying just how uncomfortable he is when you're normally having to wear all this makeup. But like just looking at
Yeah.
Odo, you could basically tell this guy's like it's a very subtle expression, but you can clearly tell that it's not just his neutral face. It's no, he's uncomfortable. It's everything from his
Yeah.
posture to everything like that. So just a lot of praise all around. Let's see. Yeah, then we get to the scene where they're still trying to coax the program off the station, and they're trying to basically trick it. It's not working, and it causes one of the pylons to explode. That's where we get the scene with Bashir and the ambassadors, where we think they might be dead. Cisco and Kira basically run to try and go save them. But unfortunately, the doors and the
Mhm.
turbo lifts aren't working, so it becomes very difficult, very challenging. So they're basically having to blast through the doors with phasers and get like a crew. Let's see. Da-da-da. All right, so O'Brien's basically like, look, let's see. We have no idea how long the probe was tumbling through space, maybe years with that life form alone on board. It's sort of like shutting up a puppy. It's sort of shutting a puppy up in a room, you know? When you lock it up, he'd scratch at the door forever and do whatever he can to get out. So that's when he gets the idea. Look, puppies just want attention, right? So all he has to do is create something that the program, sentient program, would enjoy, and let the dog
Mhm.
do that. He's like, look, everything we see suggests the entity likes and wants to be where the action is. It seems to feed off the energy of an active computer. We've been trying to like separate it from what it thrives on. We got to do the exact opposite. And he basically just ends it with saying, "I'm going to build it a doghouse."
Okay.
And now we get to the this is the best scene in the this is the best scene in the episode. So Odo is facing away from Lexana. He clearly is not well, and she's being uncharacteristically quiet. And she's like, "Look, Odo, just turn around." He's like, "Look, I can't. It's beginning." And she's like, "It's all right." And he's like, "You don't understand. No one's ever seen me like this before."
Mm.
And Lexana says, "Not even the scientist who we were assigned to you." He's like, "That was different. It was only research to him." She says, "You don't have to be ashamed with me." Again, like
Mm.
she's being very kind and very like understanding. Very like again,
Mhm.
the normal way she talks is obviously very high energy, but right now she's very calm and relaxed. He says, "I'm not ashamed. It's a private matter. That's all." It's like, and she says, "How can I make this easier for you?" And he's like, "You can't." So then Lexana takes her wig off. Let's
Mm.
see, and shows it over to him, and he's just like looks at it, it's like, "What's this?" And she says, "It's my hair. Nobody's ever seen me like this either." He's like, "Why?" It's like, "You look fine." And she's like, "I look ordinary. I've never cared to be ordinary." So you see, Odo, even us non-shapeshifters have to change who we are once in a while. Odo says, "You are not at all what I expected." Uh, and she
Mm.
says, "No one has ever paid me a greater compliment." At which point, he says he can't hold his form anymore, and she says, "I'll take care of you. You just rest." And he turns into a liquid, and she grabs it in her dress and like takes care of him. I cannot stress that this is a phenomenal scene. Duet is great.
Yep.
I will give all of Duet the praise in the world when we get to it, but I'm not gonna lie, this is probably my favorite scene of season one. You have a character
Okay.
who,
So
for 16 episodes, has been shown to be very pragmatic, very stalwart, very closed off, and in a situation where he is absolutely forced to show the most vulnerable part of himself, The person he's with is someone who is in a very similar situation. She is always loud, brash, annoying, but in truth, they're doing these exact opposite behaviors for the exact same reason. They want to hide who they really are from the world because they're not comfortable with who they really are, and they have to basically. He is forced to embrace it, and she is compelled to do it to make him more comfortable, and she does it, regardless of how uncomfortable she might be. And then again, it's just, it is a phenomenal scene. You were gonna say something. I cut you off to finish off my little rant, so go on.
No, I was, I don't even remember now. Like,
I was saying
no.
like about Duet and how I think this is my favorite scene of season 1.
Oh, yeah. So, what I was gonna say is, so I guess I have to take over making the videos because I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm going to murder you, and
Why?
there's just
Look.
don't you?
I think you have two characters, right? Luxana has a lot of character, although from TNG, you don't actually need any information from TNG to understand who she is, right? They do a lot of characterization of her here. Everything from like she's changing clothes between scenes because she is someone who very much cares about her appearance and how others perceive her. And let's be fair, as a telepath, it makes sense that she cares how others perceive her. She can see their thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? She can read their minds and she knows what people think about her, so she tries to present herself with her best foot forward. She has the most stylish clothes, the nicest hair, and of course, this also leads her to be wanting to be unique. If she can read everyone's mind, she can sort of see the most unique parts of people. And she can also see the parts that everyone has the same. And she probably recognizes, most people are boring. She probably views herself as boring. That's why she wants to dress herself up and look pretty, right? And she's willing to give that all up to accommodate someone who is in a presently worse situation than she is. And she recognizes that, allows herself to be vulnerable, so he allows himself to be vulnerable. And, I mean, these are polar opposites in terms of character. The fact that you're able to write these two characters in a way where they are struggling with the exact same thing and that they're forced to basically confront that struggle head on and not, like, hide anymore, it's great. There's no other way to describe it. Like, I'll say this. The stuff with the O'Brien and the sentient program, that's a little weird. It's not bad in any way. It's just kind of there. It's almost there to serve a plot, but they do give at least some character to it. So I do like it. It's not phenomenal in any way, though. The stuff with Bashir and the ambassadors, it's kind of funny. It's kind of enough to. It's a little bit of a tone shift for the episode. Every time you have this, Odo's dealing with Luxana, and it's a challenge. We switch over to the ambassadors are being silly and ornery again. So it's not a big deal either. But I'm not gonna lie. I think this plot line, even though it's only like a third of the episode, right? To me, it's better than Duet. And that doesn't mean the whole episode's better than Duet, right? I think all of Duet is good. I think some of this episode is good. But I think the parts of it that are good this might be like my top pick for like best scene in this season. There's a lot of great scenes, but I don't think anything comes to this. And honestly, given how much attention Odo gets, I would firmly believe that the reason they gave Odo so much attention is so that they could make this scene work. All right, my rant's over. We get a really bad CGI. We get a really bad CGI effect as Odo turns into slime in her dress.
Hey, listen, it's the '90s. Leave them alone.
I know, but it's almost disappointing. I wish they would edit it so we didn't see the transformation because it doesn't look good, right? And it's like, man, that's a great scene, and then you're like, oh yeah, here's this early '90s CGI effect.
Yep. It's not great.
So then we cut to Kira still trying to get the people out of the Bashir and the ambassadors out of that pylon, and you have O'Brien working on his doghouse. He creates a program which he names sub-program named Pup to basically kind of lock the program in there, I suppose, or at least he enticed the character in there, the program in there. So I guess it's not locked in there, but it doesn't want to leave it.
Right.
All the systems come. Yeah, all the systems come back online, and Kira and Cisco are able to go find where Bashir and the ambassadors are. They basically conclude, look, these people are, if they're alive, they're going to have severe burns and they need to be saved. And then it's revealed that O'Brien or Bashir opened up one of the jerry tubes and like got them all in there before the explosion. So all the ambassadors were saved and not harmed. And when
Yeah.
they leave, they're all giving Bashir just like amazing praise. They're like, let's see. Oh, like one of them says, "Oh, please, Julian, you can call me by my first name." Let's see. The one of the ambassadors says the doctor was remarkably calm and logical for a man of his years under such severe conditions. And they're like, we're gonna recommend putting him in for a commendation. So yeah, Bashir gets a nice little win. And
Nice day.
Cisco praises him and says, "Yeah, it's just the right place, at the right time." And then we see Luxana and Odo back on the promenade. So this is why I don't think Odo needs to transform for a very long time. He probably wasn't like that way for very long, and he's already able to become solid again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a
they
bit
exit
weird.
they exit the turbo lift. She says, "Well, it's about time." And Odo says, "I know that wasn't exactly what you had in mind for your picnic." And she says, "When it comes to picnics, the only thing that really matters is the company." And Odo says, "Your sensitivity and discretion are appreciated." And she says, "Next time you see me, I'll give you a lot more to appreciate." And Odo seems a little bit more receptive to her flirting. Yeah,
Yeah.
he has a little smile at the end and watches her walk away. So that's probably the best ship in this series. Yeah, it's probably going to be
Yeah.
controversial. I'm joking, but it is really nice that these characters, like, you don't even have to go all the way and say that, oh yeah, they're going to go on a date or something like that. It's like, no, they got to just spend some time together, and they both are happy they met each other, and they'll see each other again.
Yeah.
Not bad. And
Yeah.
then I guess this is like one issue I have with the episode. So O'Brien basically says like, "Look, I didn't get rid of the program," and Dax jokes that he adopted it. He's like, "Look, I was able to get our friend out of the main computer pathways and into a sub program. I don't see why I can't just keep it. It's happy there. It's not bothering us anymore. It seems the humane thing to do." Let's see. And Dax says it's just another life form visiting the station. And Cisco makes a joke, "Oh, keep it off the furniture. Ha ha ha." And then the episode kind of ends. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That is like a rogue AI program in your computers. I guess it's locked in a subroutine or subprogram, but that doesn't feel very safe. It's never mentioned
Yeah. It's
again. They
not
never
good.
bring this. They never bring this up.
Yeah, it comes up in the books apparently, and it's presumably brought up because it's like they make a point of we need to get it off the station as well because a long distance future the station is destroyed, and they have to
Yeah.
make a new one. But
Well,
yeah,
it's.
it's
I
just
feel
like
like there's a lot of circumstances. I mean, we'll probably comment on it going forward further. There's a lot of circumstances where that could be a potentially useful tool, but they never use. There's a point in time when, like,
yeah,
again, we won't say too many spoilers. A certain group takes over the station, and I'm like, you knew this group was going to take over the station. You could have released the dog into the programs again to cause issues, and then they might not know how to get rid of it.
yeah,
So, I
could have,
mean, like,
should
it's
have,
just
would
they
have,
never
could have.
bring it up again. It could be a tool that they use. Like, maybe it fights other people who want to use the station other than O'Brien or something. But yeah, it's never brought up again, which I would say that's kind of an issue, but that's an issue going forward. That's not an issue with this episode. So, all in all, this is an A episode for me.
Oh yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
episode.
I don't think there's really any issue. It's a lot of bottle episodes, a lot of character stuff. The biggest problem I can kind of say is maybe small details. But no, overall, it's a phenomenal episode, and I wish we had more to say about it, but we're just such negative people. We usually talk a lot more about the critical things we are, except there's nothing I can give to this episode except a good amount of praise, or like at worst, it's neutral, right? Some of the plot lines are a little bit more, not great, not bad, but otherwise, this is just a phenomenal episode. I really love it. I mean, when we talk
Yeah,
about
I give
duet,
it an
maybe
A.
my opinion will fully change. You know?
Oh yeah, actually, you know what? This is a B plus because we're gonna get to fucking do it, and
No,
I'm
no,
gonna
this
fight
could
you
still be
about it.
both can be A's, Pike.
I refuse. I
No,
refuse.
no, both can be A's. Remember, our system is one is an S tier, and the rest, like, it could be an A.
Okay. 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 I'll murder you.
You just don't like, you don't like my opinions. You,
Yes, correct. Correct.
all right. I mean, all right. So this episode, this recording's a little bit shorter. I have so much more I could talk about, but like, I don't want to spoil anything. And honestly, the episode is it's simple. It's not a super complicated episode. It's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really anything other than a lot of good character work. And it's sometimes hard to describe what makes good character, but I think the thing that makes good character here is you have, you know, Luxana has a lot of character as well. She's had some stuff in TNG. They didn't abandon it, even though it's not really considered good. So they implemented it well. Odo has a lot of character. Everything brought up from the beginning of the series. We had 16 episodes, a lot of which deal with Odo and who his character is. And we get to see him at his most vulnerable. I mean, I think probably part of their goal of the first season was to take the characters of Kira and Odo and really kind of stress test them.
Yeah,
Because,
because these are
whilst.
going to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, what I was saying is, they're kind of the more unique roles in the story. We've had a Starfleet captain before, right? Obviously,
Right.
Odo or Cisco's a commander right now, but he becomes captain. So we kind of know the kind of character he's going to become, although there's a lot of great character work for Cisco, too. Dax, again, another Starfleet. Basically, a lot of attention is given to the non-Starfleet officers, in part probably to help differentiate this series from TNG, which is still airing at this time when, this was airing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, well, we can't necessarily get people to love our Federation characters. Let's expose them to the non-Federation characters to sort of entice them with something different. And then, obviously later seasons will give a lot of attention to Dax, Bashir, O'Brien, Cisco. We've got some of it here, but I think they were really focused on getting us to like Odo and Kira. And,
Mm-hmm.
it took me a while to like Kira. It took me a while to kind of realize the purpose of that character just because, her stories told over a much longer period of time. But it's situations
Mm-hmm.
like these where they do not waste any time with Odo. They know how to use this
Yeah.
character so well. And it makes sense,
Yeah.
some of the decisions they make later on, of why they focus so much on that stuff when it's like, yeah, you clearly had a vision for Odo and the changelings as a whole. So, all in all,
Yep.
great episode. The Forsaken, which I guess it's weird that this episode refers to what I consider the B plot in its name, but I don't think that. I guess I don't. I mean, you have to stretch it to make the title apply to either of these two. I guess unless you want to call Odo the Forsaken, but we're not really discussing that aspect of his character yet.
Yeah. Not yet.
All right, so
Soon.
this was episode 17 of DS9. Pike, give some last words.
You're gonna cut me the fuck off. Go fuck